There are 3 things sitting in your refrigerator right now that God never once put on the menu, and you bought every one of them believing it was healthy. The label said so, the wrapper said so, and quietly, day after day, they are working against the very body He gave you to steward. Come in, and God bless you. I'm Pastor Robin. For most of my life, I've sat at my people's tables, the good days and the hard ones, with my Bible in one hand and a grocery list in the other. And as your pastor, I'd be failing you if I didn't warn you about the ones that come wearing a healthy wrapper. Now, before we go one step further, hear me plainly. I'm a pastor, not a doctor. So take everything I set before you today to your own physician and let them walk it with you. This is God's good food and God's own word, offered to encourage you, nothing more and nothing less. Because here's how it happened. Quietly, over about 40 years, somebody reformulated the food and kept the wrapper. Same name, same spot on the shelf, same trusted colors on the box. Because the wrapper is the part you trust, and trust is the thing they were selling all along. The company that sells you that box knows the food God made does it better. It just doesn't refill itself at $4 a bag. So, stay with me. Today, I'm going to walk your refrigerator and your pantry with you, and name the 7 you should never eat again. What they really are, what they do to the temple and the plain, cheap food God made to take each one's place. 7 of them. You'll have the whole list by the end, and it'll cost you less at the store, not more. But first, one verse. Because if you miss this, the rest won't hold. 1 Corinthians 6:19. Your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. Not a rental, a temple. You wouldn't pour poison on holy ground, so let's clear it off the shelves. Here's the first one. Number 1. Industrial seed oils. On the label they'll call it vegetable oil. And doesn't that sound like it came from a garden? It didn't. There is no vegetable called vegetable. We're talking soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, the cheap high-heat, chemically pressed oils of the industrial age. And I want you to understand what actually happens to get that clear golden liquid into the bottle, because it is nothing like squeezing an olive. The seed is crushed, then washed in a chemical solvent to pull the last of the oil out, then heated, then bleached, then deodorized. Because in its natural state, it smells so rank, you'd never pour it on your food. By the time it reaches your cart, it has been through more machines than a car. Here's the honest history of it. 100 years ago, several of these oils were largely an industrial product, used for things that had nothing to do with a dinner plate. Somebody in a marketing office looked at that cheap oil and decided to sell it back to you as heart healthy. And it worked. It's in nearly every fried thing, every bottled dressing, every chip and cracker on the aisle. And it's the oil the restaurant fries your food in too. Your body was simply not designed to take it in by the barrel. The swap, extra virgin olive oil, the dark bottle. First cold press, about $12, and it lasts you a month, if you use it the way you should. That is the oil the men who walked with the Lord actually poured, on their bread, on their heads, into the lamps of the temple. Deuteronomy 8 names the promised land, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees, of olive oil and honey. God set that table 3,000 years before a single factory existed. For the pan at low heat, a little real butter, or a good olive oil. For cooking hot, a spoon of avocado oil, or lard the way your grandmother kept it. Leave the vegetable oil right there on the shelf. Number 2. High-fructose corn syrup. Now here's a sweetener that does not exist anywhere in creation. You cannot pick it, you cannot grow it, you cannot press it from a fruit or a cane. It's manufactured, field corn, the cheapest crop we grow, broken down with enzymes and rearranged in a plant until it's cheaper and sweeter than sugar, a thing engineered in the last 50 years for one reason. It costs almost nothing to make. And because it costs almost nothing, they put it in everything. It hides in the bread, in the ketchup and the barbecue sauce, in the healthy yogurt, in the salad dressing, in the crackers, in the pasta sauce, in things that don't taste sweet at all. Go read 3 labels in your own kitchen tonight, and I'd wager you'll find it in 2 of them. Here's what troubles me about it, as your pastor. The body handles the sugar in a piece of fruit slowly, because God wrapped that sweetness in fiber and water to slow it down. This stuff comes with none of the breaks. It hits you all at once, and it leaves you hungry again an hour later. Which, if you think about it, is exactly what the company selling it would want. God gave you honey for sweetness. Proverbs says, "My son, eat honey, for it is good, and the honeycomb which is sweet to your taste." Raw honey, real maple syrup, a ripe date chopped into your oatmeal, a piece of fruit right off the branch. That's the sweetness he made, and it comes with everything it needs. The syrup from the plant, you can do without. Now stay with me, because the next one is the one most folks have completely backwards. Number 3. Artificial food dyes. Red 40, yellow 5, blue 1. That bright, cheerful, almost glowing color in the cereal. The sports drink, the frosting, the popsicles, the candy your grandbabies love. That is not fruit, and it never touched a fruit. Those dyes are made from petroleum, colored in a laboratory, and added for exactly one reason. So the food looks more alive and more appealing than it actually is. Think on that a moment. They have to paint it to make it look like food. And the ones they paint the brightest are almost always aimed at children, because a child's eye goes straight for the color. That's not an accident. That's a strategy. God never once had to color an apple. He never had to dye a pomegranate red, or paint a bunch of grapes purple. He simply made them that color, and he made them good all the way through, skin to seed. Now, this doesn't mean you live in fear of every colored thing. It means you get in the habit of asking one plain question at the shelf. Did this color come from a plant, or from a plant that makes chemicals? The swap here is the easiest of the whole list. Reach for the real fruit instead. The blueberry is already blue. The cherry is already red. The carrot is already orange. Man improved on nothing. He only made it shinier and charged you for the shine. Let me stop right here and tell you something honest, because I'll not stand up here and pretend I've always known this. For years I had it backwards myself. I trusted the front of the box, made with real fruit, natural, wholesome, and never once turned it over to read the back. I fed my own household from those wrappers. So if you've been doing the same, hear me, there's no shame in it. They designed that box to be trusted. You did nothing wrong. We're just turning it over together now. Number 4. Natural flavors. And oh, this one is clever. Doesn't that phrase sound like it came straight from an orchard? Like they wandered out and captured the taste of a real strawberry? Here is the plain truth of it. Natural flavor is very often a flavor built in a laboratory, a taste engineered, drop by drop, to make you keep eating, whether the food underneath is nourishing or not. It is one of the most common ingredients on the American shelf, and it is also one of the most mysterious, because those two little words can stand in for a whole recipe of things the company never has to tell you. Somebody in a marketing office decided natural flavor sounded a great deal better on the label than engineered to be hard to put down. Now God's design confirms what your grandmother already knew without any of this. Real food already tastes like itself. A tomato tastes like a tomato. Basil tastes like basil. A strawberry warm off the plant will beat any flavor a lab ever built. And it doesn't need a patent to do it. You don't need a laboratory to make an olive taste like an olive. 1 Timothy 4, verse 4. Every creature of God is good, and nothing is to be rejected if it is received with thanksgiving. The question is always what man did to it after. The swap is simply this: food that tastes like the thing it is. Herbs, spices, a squeeze of lemon over the fish, a clove of garlic in the pan, a little sea salt. The garden had all the flavor you'll ever need, and it never once needed a laboratory to prove it. Number 5. Refined, bleached white flour. And I want to be careful and tender here, because bread is a holy thing. The Lord himself took bread, blessed it, and broke it, and told us to remember him in it. So I'm not standing against bread. I'm standing against what we did to it. Man can do a great many things to a kernel of wheat, and not one of them makes it better than the way it came off the stalk. Here's what happens. A grain of wheat has 3 parts: the bran on the outside, the germ deep inside, and the starchy middle. The bran and the germ are the living parts, where nearly all the nourishment lives. The fiber and the oils and the goodness God packed in. So the mill strips both of those out, because they're the parts that would spoil, and a shelf can't sell a thing that spoils. What's left is the plain white starch. Then they bleach it whiter still. And then, and this is the part that ought to catch you and hold you, they add a handful of synthetic vitamins back in, and stamp the word enriched across the bag. Enriched. As though they'd done you a kindness, after taking out the very things God put in. The longer the ingredient list, the further you've walked from the garden. The swap? Real whole grain bread. Read the back and make sure the first word is whole, not wheat flour dressed up brown with a little coloring. Or better still, the bread God actually wrote a recipe for. Ezekiel 4, verse 9, names 6 simple ingredients for a bread. A prophet was told to live on wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and spelt, ground together. You can buy a loaf of it in most any grocery store now, $4 or $5, right there in the freezer aisle. And you can buy every one of those grains loose, and grind your own if you're of a mind to. Whole grains, the way they grew. Leave the bleached white bag on the shelf. Now let me stop us here, because this is the piece that changes the whole grocery list. You'll notice a pattern in all 7 of these. Every single one is a case of man taking something God made simple and cheap and good and improving it right out of existence, then selling the improvement back to you at a markup. That is the whole game. The food company wants you eating from a box with a barcode because a barcode refills itself. God set the first table in a garden, and a garden asks nothing of you but that you come and eat. Your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. It was never meant to run on the leftovers of a factory. Now, 3 more. Number 6. Artificial sweeteners. Aspartame, sucralose, saccharin. The little pink and blue and yellow packets on the diner table, the diet and zero sugar, everything. Now I understand the appeal. I truly do, especially for anyone watching their weight or their sugar. And I want to be fair, because a great many good and careful people reach for these, thinking they're doing the right thing. So let me say it plainly first. If you are managing a health condition, this is exactly the kind of thing to bring to your own doctor and let them guide you. You and your physician. Not you and a video. But here is the honest concern I'll not skip over. These are chemical sweeteners, some of them hundreds of times sweeter than sugar itself. And there's a real and growing question about what that intensity does to the appetite and to the gut over years and years of daily use. Some folks find the sweetness only trains them to crave more sweet, not less. God's answer to a sweet tooth was never a packet from a laboratory. It was a fig, sun warm and split open. A date, a handful of grapes off the vine, fruit, in the portion he intended, with the fiber still wrapped around it the way he designed it. The breaks built right in. That's the sweetness that came from the garden, and it never once needed a warning label. Number 7. And this last one is in more kitchens than any of the others. Sodium nitrite, and its cousin sodium nitrate, the preservatives in most processed and cured meats. The bacon, the hot dogs, the deli slices in the plastic sleeve, the breakfast sausage, that bright pink packaged ham that stays pink for weeks. 2 things that preservative does. It holds the meat far past what's natural, so it can sit and still be sold. And it keeps that rosy pink color, so it looks fresh and appetizing, long after a plain cut of meat would have turned brown and told you the truth. And when processed meat is cured this way and then cooked at high heat, that's where the honest concern lives. That particular combination has been studied and questioned by serious people for many years now, and I'd not be your pastor if I stood here and glossed over it to keep things comfortable. Now hear me clearly, because this is important, and I don't want to be misheard. I am not telling you to fear a piece of meat. God gave us the animals for food, and He called it good, and there's a place for good meat on a grateful table. What I'm telling you is to learn the difference between meat and a meat product, between a cut that came off an animal and a thing that came off a production line. The swap is a plain one, and not an expensive one. Fresh meat from the butcher counter, a whole chicken, a real cut of fish, wild-caught salmon or sardines, the kind of fish the apostles pulled from the Sea of Galilee and cooked right there on the shore, over a fire the Lord Himself had built. Real food, not a product engineered to sit on a shelf for a year and look alive the whole time. And there's your 7. The seed oils, the corn syrup, the dyes, the lab flavors, the bleached flour, the chemical sweeteners, the nitrite meats, every one of them a wrapper you trusted, and every one with a plain, cheaper food God made, waiting right beside it on the shelf. Now let me tell you the honest, hopeful part, because I'll not leave you afraid to open your own refrigerator. You do not have to overhaul your whole life tonight. You don't have to march to the trash can. Start with 1. This week, when the vegetable oil runs out, buy the olive oil instead. Next trip, pick the bread with 6 ingredients you can pronounce over the one with 30. Turn one box over and read the back. That's it, small and steady. The body God made you doesn't turn on a dime, but it turns. And here is my one hard line. The one I will say in every video and mean with my whole heart. If you are carrying any serious illness right now, this good food walks alongside your doctor, never ever instead of him. Don't stop a single thing your physician has you on. Bring what you heard today to that doctor and walk it together. Hope and medicine were never enemies. God gave us both. Because I'll tell you what I've learned in a lifetime of ministry, sitting at the tables of people I loved. The plainest food is very nearly always the truest. The widow in my parish, who kept a jar of raw honey on her sill and a heel of real bread for every child who came through her door. She understood something the marketing office never will, that the food that needs no wrapper is the food that needs no defending. God made it, and He called it good, and it has been good ever since. Breathe. God is here, so take care of the temple He gave you. Eat the food He made, in the portion He intended, with a grateful heart. And remember, God set the first table in a garden, and He is still setting one for you. Go and eat in good health, and God keep you. I'm Pastor Robin.